in learners and teachers of English. And on the cover, on the front slide, you see the title of a chapter in a book which was produced in 2016 by the British Council, in which the basic principles behind creative thinking skills development in teachers, both in training as well as for their own continuous professional development, are included in that chapter. Some of the ideas that you're going to hear are from that chapter, but because you're good readers, you don't need to come here for me to read that chapter aloud to you. I've included another couple of ideas, and also it occurred to me as I was creating activities for creativity, thinking skills development, that a lot of them incorporated critical thinking abilities. It's very difficult to separate the two sometimes. You can micromanage aspects of creative thinking skills development, and so I'm going to do this little aspect with a small time activity like creativity with a small c. But when you go to the bigger picture activities, it's kind of difficult to separate. In any ways, we cannot dissect the brain and understand exactly and precisely what is happening. My name is Marisa Konstantinidis. I know some of you, but not quite a lot of you, so it's really good to meet new faces, new people, and make new friends in English language teaching. So thank you very much for coming this morning. I'm Greek. I live in Athens. I run a teacher development center that does a lot of training for CELTA and Delta, the well-known Cambridge courses, and a lot of other things besides, like, whatever training centers do. Most of you are teacher trainers anyway, so you know what I'm talking about. I have been a teacher and trainer for quite a long time. I'm not going to tell you exactly how long this morning. Can you think about this number? What does it mean? What does it refer to? Can you guess the number? What it's referring to? The teacher that I train? I train more.
The training sessions that you did? You have done so far?
No. Any other ideas? Okay, I have only 30 minutes, so I'm going to tell you. It's the number of big and small decisions teachers make every day. It's a number, I don't know, if it's a hypothetical number. I found it somewhere on the web. Somebody kind of sat and thought what kind of decisions we make every day. If this number is not quite precise, and it never is, however, it does reflect the huge number of decisions we have to make every day. So why I think it's important to develop creative and critical thinking? Teachers need it. They need to plan lessons. They need to plan courses, big and small. They need to adapt materials that they use in their daily lives. Course books don't come made for your learners, for their learners. They need to create their own materials and do that very quickly and sometimes off the cuff. You come in, you go into substitute, an activity didn't work. What are you going to do? Stay with whatever you're doing? They need to do that with some confidence. Not with the kind that, where did I put my hand out? I don't think this activity is working, and I don't quite know what to do. They need to appear confident for the learner's sake, and obviously they need to generate lots and lots and lots of ideas. The more we progress in the kind of web culture that we live in, the less we rely on course books. The more teachers go into entrepreneurial, edupreneurial roles, the more they need to become designers and creators. I think they also need to develop not just the creative thinking skills, they need the critical thinking, and some of the reasons here is the internet is there. Can you buy all of it? Can you buy buy everything you read wholesale. There's blogs out there. We all encourage our trainees to blog. Some of them regurgitate ideas and they're great, and some of them produce ideas that are not very well put together. So there's a lot of rubbish out there on the web. And we encourage some of that rubbish because it helps people develop. But it doesn't mean that we should believe everything we read or that our trainees should. The quality of the content that's out there on the web is very dubious sometimes. It's just a course book up on the web with gap fills. You know, I can do that on the page. I don't need the web to do gap fills and multiple choice. All these ready material sites that teachers like, a lot of them don't contain quality material. There's lots of gurus out there. And the gospel that they preach is not always appropriate for every teacher, every context, every learning and teaching reality. Think of a guru that you recently maybe tried to dissuade your trainees from. Yeah? Okay, I don't want to have names named because I know some of these people and I will tell them. Trends and fashions, you know, trends and fashions. Some of us probably have witnessed them more than others. I can see my friend Sue there. We've been doing work together, moderating ELT chat. Did you know about ELT chat? I'm going to sell you ELT chat in a minute. So we've seen kind of trends and fashions, like reams and reams of blogs all preaching dogma. We call them the dogma posse, you know. And every time a dogma post came up, Scott Thorbury would go on Twitter and say, "Oh, it's so lovely." And that happens quite a lot because in the past we didn't get in touch with the gurus so much. We couldn't talk to them. But now they want to talk to us, we're connected. So there's trends, there's fashions, and we need our critical thinking skills. So all I'm saying, that developing your trainees' creative thinking abilities, their critical thinking abilities on your training courses, in activities big and small, will help their teacher thinking, for them to become better teachers, more confident, more efficient, and also, I'm not going to just talk about on the training course, because on the training course you've got to train your trainees about what they should do after the training. And I believe that a good teacher training course doesn't just impart knowledge, but it trains the teachers to keep developing. I don't know if you agree with me, but you know, I can see a lot of colleagues nodding. It's what we do. The teachers develop skills, thinking skills in the learners. They do learner training for autonomy. And we also need to develop autonomous thinking and critical thinking abilities in trainee teachers. So this is a blank slide. And in 2015, the World Economic Forum thought that these were the 10 topmost abilities that people needed in the professional world. And they needed complex problem solving, being able to coordinate with others, managing people, critical thinking was very, very high, negotiating, controlling quality. You know, there's echoes of many things related to creativity and critical thinking in various categories here. A service orientation, that we, we don't just do things for our own benefit, but we are service oriented. Judgments and decision making, again, back to problem solving and critical thinking. It's a bit repetitive, I think, but you know, active listening and creativity. By 2020, complex problem solving still remains at the top, but critical thinking and creativity have risen to the top to deal with the new world of information, interaction, connectivity, and progress, if you like, technological progress, we need to have more critical thinking and creative thinking abilities. And I think some of the things that we need to help our trainees do is to learn to connect, to learn to persevere in their efforts to become better teachers. They need to unblock any resistances they have towards developing creative thinking skills, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm not creative. Yeah, do you get trainees who say that? I get a lot of calls, you can do this, but I couldn't, because you are so creative. No, I'm not. I'm not more creative than anyone. All of us have potential to be creative. It's just so some of us were told that we could not be creative because it's not part of our culture, it's not part of our social environment. It's too artistic, arty. It's connected with kind of being flighty. We need to teach them to curate, particularly curate the web. The web is out there, it's a wonderful tool, but our trainees need to learn to curate it, and in order to curate it, they need to be critical and reflective. So these involve learning, sharing the learning, because sharing brings more learning, practicing obviously things that they learn, and trying out. If you're not connected, you're not going to get a lot of feedback from anyone. You just, shut up in your own shell, you try things out that don't work. It's a little, like a little mouse. On a training course, I'm going to share a couple of activities with you because time flies and I don't have very much of it. I'm not doing too badly here. I've got another 20 minutes. I want to show you some activities, and each time maybe we'll think if it's just creative thinking or critical thinking or both. I'm not going to go into smaller dimensions of different aspects of creativity, which I'm hopeful you will find in the book that I will suggest. Some conditions for activities to generate creativity and promote it in the training classroom, and incidentally in the learning classroom as well, yeah? Learning languages, learning anything. They should be playful, they should be fun, they should be well scaffolded, supported, they should be safe. People should feel safe to say any silly thing that comes to their head, because you cannot be creative if you feel, you don't stick your neck out if you feel threatened by others. So you need to create safe environments for people to practice their creativity. They need to be, for me, maybe some people don't agree with that, a little bit crazy and paradoxical. I think the funny bone is very important, and tickling it very often is quite good for generating creative thinking. They need to be emotional and involve the affect. And our Angelos here is going to be did a great talk on that, yeah. And they need to be praised, and not praised just for the result, but praised for the process, for the effort. Not what you did was great, but I really appreciated the way you worked towards solving the problem. Creativity thrives within constraints. If everything is safe and easy peasy Japanese, it doesn't really actually, blossom in any way. It benefits from the paradox, I think, is triggered by what is unusual and strange and a little off. When things get too normal, it dies an untimely death, and is sparked off by humor and is revived by exaggeration. Does that find you in agreement? Yes? I think, you know, not all of these conditions need to be met. For example, artists get creative because they have a lot of constraints in their life, not necessarily because they're humorous or funny, but the difficulties of their life, the pain, you know, just gets them to create something that we all admire. I'm talking about certain conditions maybe that could generate creativity. So let's look at an activity that we could do that maybe covers some of these aspects. Now, this activity is called predicaments, and it's a game, and it's played usually in 2 teams. Each team is given some predicaments, or you could call this game accusations. Yeah, just putting people on the spot. And one trainee says to a trainee from another group, they're, you know, it's a competition. You were seen leading a group of blindfolded students through a mall after listening to a dialogue. Okay, why were you doing that? So the team has to confer very quickly and create a very plausible reason why they did that. And if it's played in groups, you could say, you can hear group A, group B, and then the team that sets the question can decide what was the best answer, what was the best reason. And the other team can accuse another group you were seen gluing shoes on the door outside your classroom before a grammar lesson. Why were you doing that? Why did you do that? What was the purpose? The teams have to find a plausible reason. Find some silly situations like that. In the language classroom, it's like you were seen sticking knives and forks in your front lawn. Why were you doing that? People have to find a very good reason. What does that generate? Is that creative thinking or critical? Creative. Is it deep thinking? Is it or quick thinking? Quick thinking. So you need activities that generate quick thinking in the training classroom, because we promote a lot of reflection, but people also need to think on their feet, and we've got to give them some training on that. So do some quick thinking activities, and games like this one are very good. Later on, the trainees in groups can write 2 predicaments of their own and send them to another group to continue with the game. So that's even more creative, but also it's more critical, yeah? Because they've got to think, what exaggerated, silly claim can I make that other trainees can be confused about, or whatever? Balloon debates, which you know about from the language classroom, are also very good for creative or critical thinking. In a balloon debate, you've got to get rid of someone or something, otherwise the balloon will start falling on the, you know, and you get killed. So in this balloon debate, we put communicative language teaching, PPP, grammar translation, they're all on that balloon, and students have, you know, they have to say 5 of them, the rest of them have to be chucked out. Otherwise, your balloon will, you know, fall on the ground, everybody dies. So this is what kind of activity?
Critical
thinking. They've got to think of the approaches. This is great for an approaches lesson. In my own training classroom, I am less respectful, if you like, and we put Henry Widows on, Scott Thornbury. So which of these people are we going to chuck out? And students start to think seriously, and they revise the principles of the approaches. So this is quite critical, but it has elements of creativity because it's playful. It tickles their funny bone. Oh, I'm going to kill Henry Widdowson, you know, that kind of thinking. But it's the kind of learning that sticks. Yeah, it's rather than read 5 chapters of Diane Larson Freeman. This is more effective as a training activity, I think, more memorable. I want to share another activity that I quite like with you. This is particularly useful for anything you want to discuss. And it's very good for observations. Post-observations are always a problem for trainers. What am I going to do? Oh, they're going to go on the board, they're going to write the pros and the cons. I'm going to give them some criteria. You look at the classroom management, you look at the language. You do these things, don't you? We all do them. This is great, this is fine. We make them aware of the criteria. But De Bono has a great activity which I thought would be very nice for adapting to that, and it also generates both creative, I think, and critical thinking. And it's the 6 thinking hats. So you can give each trainee a thinking hat for the lesson, and in that particular lesson, they think the white hat is about data and information. So the person given the white hat just describes what happened, the facts of that observation. The teacher did this, the students did that. Any information, the weather was very nice outside the window, the overhead projector, the data projector worked, the DVD got stuck. These are facts. The red hat is associated with feelings. I noticed that the teacher got really flustered during moment, in minute 8, and the students responded very enthusiastically. So that hat records feelings, okay? But without justification or prejudice, just records the feelings. That's what they notice. The yellow hat is for positive positive looks. It looks for benefits and encourages a positive view, even in people who are always critical. And so the yellow sunshine hat will say things like, it was a really nice activity and I think the students enjoyed it. Yeah, and I really appreciated the effort of the student and that. And the black hat relates to caution. Oh, I don't know, I think this you need to be careful. In this case it worked. What if? What if? Okay, this is maybe the what if person. So this is the stern judge, as you see, yeah? Vegetation and rich growth, it's creative thinking. Oh, that was lovely, and it makes me think of another activity that you could use, blah, blah, blah. And the blue one is about process control, for thinking about thinking. The blue hat asks for summaries, conclusions, and decisions. So, can you summarize what happened, You can change what the colors of the hats mean. It's up to you. You could make some cards and distribute them after each lesson or before the observation to the trainees, and ask them to record only things pertinent to their hats. And you can change the meanings of the hats themselves. Another quite good activity for generating possibly quick thinking on their feet is preoccupations. Preoccupations is an activity that I might do at the end of a session where I've done maybe controlled versus restricted versus authentic practice, yeah? So I might give a preoccupation on drilling to you and role plays to you. And then I would say all A's have drilling as their preoccupation. Some guys, they always talk about cars and football. Sorry, that was terrible. That was such a sexist comment. But I stand by it. Or some women, whatever. So, give them a preoccupation and then hold a brief discussion, trying to draw the other person into their preoccupation without breaking the flow of the conversation. So one person might begin by saying, oh, I love drills. Drills are so exciting. Young learners love drills. You can get them to repeat forever and they never get tired. Who wants to do role play as my opponent? Anybody? No, I'm shy. Okay, so the other person will say, well, you're right, but you know, drills are quite limited, so you need to extend students and kind of get them into more meaningful activities. So what about using a role play now and again? So after you use the drills, you can move them into a role play. And the drill person will say, yes, and we could drill the lines of the dialogue first. And so on and so forth. So, is that critical thinking or creative thinking? Both. And is that slow, reflective thinking or quick thinking on your feet? Quick thinking. Does it also check knowledge? Yes. Okay, so it does more things at one, and I think it's a very simple activity to organise. And a lot of my activities are quite simple. Okay, this is a typical desert island activity. You know how it works. So the desert island activity works like this. You say to the learners, you are going to be on a desert island for a week. This is what you have. You have to choose 5 items, the most useful items. You can change the scope of the activity and not say desert island, you know, for a week. These are 20 things, and you want to organize an effective reading lesson for a class of young learners. Which items will you choose from the list? Okay, so that's critical. It generates reflection and some creative thinking, possibly, because they will try to adjust, you know, or adapt the use of items on the list so they could become useful for a particular lesson. So again, it's a more holistic type of activity. Critical thinking involves evaluating as well. And if you want to go to this link and maybe add something later, I've started there's a great tool called TriCider, and it can be done live. You don't need a login. Let me go back to my presentation because I shouldn't be here. Oops. Something happened. Okay, so when students go here, they can add an argument, and you can add an argument on my TriCider. But 2 or 3 things that I've said. For example, I say communicative drilling is a contradiction in terms. Okay? So you can write a pro, an argument for, and or arguments against. The tool allows trainees to write for and against arguments for each statement you make. And they can also add their own ideas underneath that. This is a great tool for reflection, and you know, when you've done a particular topic area and you want them to evaluate maybe approaches or certain techniques or a unit in a course book, whatever, you can put some stuff here and they can add arguments for and against. In the end, they can vote which arguments they like the most, and they can see which arguments work best. I learned this tool from Nick Peachy, who has a really nice article in his blog. If you know Nick Peachy's blog, but if you Google Nick Peachy TriCider, you will find a couple of TriCiders he's created to demonstrate, and something that he's done on his blog. Okay, working with transcripts as well. I think maybe many of us work with transcripts. How many of you work with transcripts of lessons? Okay, not that many. It's a great idea to work, although I understand that on a training course there isn't very much time to get the students to transcribe stuff. But there are tools on the web now where you can put a recording through and it can transcribe. I can't remember the name of it, but I know I have one when I put up my presentation on SlideShare, I will add a link, a list of the links, but there is a great tool where you can feed in a recording and it transcribes the talk. Students, trainees can do a lot of great things with transcripts, but generally transcripts are so huge, they cannot do, they get lost in them. So don't give them 2 minutes of transcripts, not very long, and get them maybe to do some of these things for critical evaluations. Mark all unnecessary talk, underline it or highlight it. That helps with overuse of language by the teacher. Add an activity after each stage for a better transition, yeah? Or add some scaffolding to activities you feel didn't have enough scaffolding. Or omit anything, delete anything not needed, or marked, or draw a line over it. Or change stages or activities in some way, so you think, in any way you think would make them more effective. So working with transcripts is quite good. The big picture for teachers to develop these skills, as I said in the beginning of my talk, is for them to plan lessons, courses, activities, materials, to think fast on their feet, not to believe everything everyone says, even their own trainers. Sometimes, because we have our own hang-ups as well. And we recognize it because we're professional people. So they need to develop their own teaching persona, they need to develop their own teaching style, and to do that, they need to be both creative and critical. There's lots of tools out on the web for remembering, for curating, for example, Delicious or Digo or other curation tools for understanding and developing knowledge. Twitter, ELT chat every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, Get a Twitter account and come talk to us. For applying, you can do lots of things with animation tools, with picture tools, with picture editors. And for creative and evaluating, creating wikis, creating collaborative spaces, and so on for your learners. These are good for autonomous professional development as well. And I don't know what happened. And these are some of the curation tools that you can help your learners learn. If you want to take a look at the link, it's a collection of curation tools that I put in there. Okay? The big picture involves doing all these things. Okay? And these are some of the tools. I will put this presentation up on SlideShare. Look for it under my name, Marisa Constantinidis, if you're interested, and I'll add a couple of other links. Download also this free book. You can look for it by its name. You get it. It's very easy to find on the web. Creativity in the English Language Classroom. And that's about it from me. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.